We're going to start off Unit 2 called Modifiers by doing 4 small videos on some different modifiers that we can add to our basic shapes in order to change them up and make them more easy and more realistic than just adding some of our normal geometries and standard primitives into our scene. So all of these modifiers started out as simple boxes. We're going to start in our first video with the taper modifier. So I'm going to go to new. I'm going to call this modifier practice. Okay, so I already have this saved as modifier practice. So I'm going to go to save as. I got a new scene. I'm going to call this modifier practice. For me, I'm going to call it number 1 because then I'm not overwriting my other one. Save, and I have a new workspace to work on. Now you're going to need your Scene Explorer for this. We'll change some things up. If you don't see that, maybe it got closed, then you can turn it back on under the toolbar here. You can go to Tools, Scene Explorer, and I want to dock mine over on the left-hand side. So this is how most of yours are when you open it. For your new scene, you can maximize your viewport here. For your perspective viewport, we can model everything for this practice in the perspective viewport. So this first video will just do the first modifier, the taper, and then the next one will just roll right into the other 3, which will add to the same scene. And then when we're completed with all 4 of these, you will render a picture and share that as part 1 of your assignment for this unit. All right, so let's just draw a simple box here. So I'm going to draw a box. Okay, drag it over, drag it back. I'm not worried about having my snaps on. I'm not really that worried about the size. I just want it big enough to work with. So you can have your snaps off for this. It doesn't matter. Now, when I have my box in my scene, you'll notice mine is randomized for size, but my segments are set a little different. You might not even see that. So if you have your edge faces turned off, then what you'll probably see is just this default shading here, and you won't even see the lines. So I'm going to turn on I'm going to leave it in default shading, but I want to turn on my edge faces. What that will do is it will show me how many segments my basic shape is. Think of these as like Lego blocks to build one whole building out of Legos. I don't need this many height. Let's set my height segments for now to 3. Okay, so I'm still in my original box. I haven't clicked off of it. If I clicked off of it, well, let me do that. I can get the same parameters back if I click off of it. Now I click on it and it wants to draw a new box. It's not letting me adjust that. So undo is your best friend. Control Z undoes things. So I don't want to keep clicking on drawing new boxes. Control Z. I want to modify or change the box that I have in the scene. As soon as I click off of it, that's sealed, and I can't keep working on it when I'm in the Create tab here. So I need to switch into my Modify tab. It's going to let me make changes on any shape that's in my scene. So I click on Modify. Now I go and click on my shape just to make sure it has this aqua green, aqua blue line around it. Now I get the same menu as I had in the Create tab, but now this is going to let me edit the existing shape in my scene. So change it up a little bit just to make sure that it's working for you. Okay, and I'm going to change my length segments here to 2. So I have my default shading set. I have my edge faces, which is going to be F4 on your keyboard for the hotkey. And we'll see that in our test later on. So practice your hotkey on that. Hit F4 to turn that on and off. And width is 2. And we're going to make height segments 3 for now. Now it's still just a box, right? if we want to get this turned into a shape like this, we have to add some more changes to it. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to add a modifier onto our box. So we have our modify tab here, our box number 1 selected. We're going to pull down this modifier list, and we see a long list of different things we can do on this box. And we are going to add a taper modifier. Okay, so this first taper that we're going to do, we know the modifier is applied because it changed the outline of our wireframe to orange. So that's where the modifier is getting applied at. And we can adjust the taper by pulling this up or down to a point. I'm just going to make it wide for now just to see how it looks. And then we're going to turn the curve up or down. And you can do either one. You can make it either skinny in the middle or wider in the middle. I'm going to turn this top taper back down to 0 just for mine. And we're going to look and see how this looks. Now, if you notice, mine here is a lot smoother than the taper on the one that I'm practicing on right now. So what's happening is our box just doesn't have enough segments cut into it for the height. Okay, every single segment in here can only be a straight line that's cut. So I need to go and just add a few more segments into the height of my box. I do that by clicking off of the taper back onto the original box in my list of, this is a hierarchy list. So this is done in order. Every new top one is applied to everything else on the bottom. So I'm going to select my box. I'm going to go down here for my height segments. I'm going to change that to 7. And that smooth things out quite a bit. If I want it a little bit smoother, I'm going to do maybe 11. Okay. I don't want to go more than that, because what will happen is if let's say I want it really smooth and I'm going to put it as 100. Yeah, my line looks very curved, but it complicates my shape later on. And if I need to modify this, it's just way too many faces and edges and corners and vertexes to modify. So we want the smallest number that we can get away with and still have our shape look like the shape it's supposed to look like in our scene. Okay, that will keep our modeling easy to go. So this is our first box. That's as far as we need to go. Feel free to give it a color, but we're going to name it. So in my modifier list here, I can name it. We're going to call this taper. Okay, taper. Now, when I change the name here in the modify list, you're going to see that it also changes the name here in my Scene Explorer, right? If your Scene Explorer is not on, turn it on in Tools. In my Scene Explorer, it's called taper. Later on, I can also change the names here in the list. I can just right click on them and I can go to rename and I can call it whatever I want. We are ready to do our next shape. So that is a wrap for our first shape for our taper modifier. I will see you back here in the next video where we are going to do a twist and another taper. So thanks for joining me. See you in the next one.